Two members. A second member, Mr. Robert Tossi, Ward 1 Councilor, and Ward 2 Councilor, Pauline Cormier. Good evening. This is petition 48-24, Elizabeth Wood, Planning and Development Director. On behalf of the Planning Board, Leominster, Massachusetts, request to amend the zoning ordinance pertaining to uses not listed in the table of uses. Again, this hearing was initially opened on August 12th at 6:45 p.m. At that time, we were joined by Ms. Elizabeth Wood, Planning and Development Director, and Mr. John Souza, the Planning Board Chairman. I see tonight we have the Building Commissioner, Mr. Nile, with us. You're welcome to take a seat at the table, sir, if you like. Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm not sure if you're aware of what we discussed at our past meeting with Mr. Souza and Mrs. Wood, but obviously during that meeting, no one could seem to locate the text of this referenced, if it's not listed in the table of uses, it's prohibited. And obviously, we all learned afterward that it's on the flow chart, but it's not listed in text as, and again, we had an opinion from City Solicitor's Office that they thought it would be a good idea to add it either at the end of the first paragraph of the section Article 3. In that first paragraph, underlying districts table of uses and overlay district table of uses. So we'd love to hear what your thoughts are about it, and the floor is yours.
Mr. Dahlia, please use the microphone. Thank you. You can slide that towards you. There you go.
Yeah, okay, so it is in the flow chart. The problem is that 99% of the people that look at this book don't even know that flow chart exists. And when they do see it, they just skip right by it. So it was my feeling that if we put it in black and white and saying that if it's not in the chart, it's not allowed, it would just make everybody's life easier. And we actually got two opinions from the city's lawyers. One said that it should go in, and the other one said it's already in there. Why be redundant? I think we need to be redundant because, like I says, when people look at that flow chart, nobody realizes that it's saying that if it's not in the chart, you can't do it. So,
Unfortunately, we were only provided with one of the legal opinions.
yeah.
So obviously, I'll take your word for it. I really don't have any other questions, so let me go to members of my committee. Councilor Tossi, do you have anything?
No, not at this time.
Councilor Pauline Cormier?
So just to clarify, so you just want this added in so that when somebody goes and looks at this, they're going to see this first and foremost, and then they're going to know to refer to the chart.
Right, because like I says, right now, people look at this flow chart, and it's kind of confusing because it's got arrows pointing all over the place in different paths. And so people just, they look at it, then they just skip it, and they go to the chart to see if it's listed. And so by putting that in there in black and white in words, it's gonna just alleviate the confusion so that they can say, okay, it's not listed, we can't do it.
Okay. All right. Nothing further, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, so Councilor, Mr. President.
Yeah, I appreciate the building inspector's view on this because I was part of the committee that revised the ordinance, and Mr. Mullaney was the one who came up with the flow chart. Really as a convenience to the user, but I also agree that it's a little confusing, that flow chart, and I also can see why a lot of people ignore it. I also would say further that I'm not sure that the flow chart has the force of ordinance. It's really a convenience to the user, and whether that in fact is an enforceable thing by itself, I'm not sure. So I would endorse what the building inspector is suggesting, and let's make this crystal clear so we don't have any problems in the future.
Anything else, Council?
All set.
Let me open it up to the council. Is there anyone who would like to ask the building commissioner a question or make a comment on this? Councilor Shelliff-Zephyr.
Yeah, thank you. So the assumption was a few months ago, I understand that, anything that the general, I guess, consensus is, and I think that this was in one of Brian Riley the city solicitor for us, that if it's not listed in the use of, if it's not listed as a use in the table of uses, then it is by definition not allowed.
Yes.
Correct. And Mr. Souza, the planning board chair, made that point as well.
Yes.
So adding this, any use, basically, that is not listed in the table, so it's just a kind of a catch-all or a broad description of anything not in the table of uses that is not specifically listed there is not allowed, right?
Correct.
Okay, so it's, okay, I got it. I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood that, the way that a lot of zoning is written, anything not in the table of uses is by, common sense or ordinance not allowed. Thank you.
Anyone else on the council? Seeing none, I'm going to go to the public. Is there anyone in attendance this evening that would like to speak either in favor of or in opposition to petition 48-24? For the second time, is there anyone in attendance this evening that would like to speak in favor of or in opposition to petition 48-24? For the third and final time, is there anyone in attendance this evening that would like to speak in favor of or in opposition to petition 48-24? Seeing none, unless you have anything to add, I'll declare this public hearing closed.
Very well, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
The next public hearing is not scheduled until 6:40, so we have a TV timeout.
daughter, her father died, and her father-in-law died, and about, less than a month, maybe 5 weeks later, his daughter, her sister-in-law died.
Mr. Chairman, are you ready to proceed?
I am, Mr. President. Thank you. This is a continued public hearing on petition 3-25. Massachusetts Electric Company requests permission to locate poles, wires, and fixtures, including the necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures along and across the following public way. Pleasant Street, National Grid to install one solely owned pole on Pleasant Street, beginning at a point approximately 66 feet south of the center line of the intersection of Pleasant Street and Pleasant Place. National Grid will be installing a quadruplex to service 800A at 71 Pleasant Street, installing subpole 8-84 to support the new quadruplex wire. My name is Brandon Robbins. I'm the chair of the committee, and I'm joined by Councilor Claire Frieda and Councilor Shalafu Zephyr, the other two members of the committee. At the last public hearing on this, we had read into the record the referral letter from the DPW director, and at the time, the representative from National Grid, who I don't see tonight, had indicated that they weren't sure that they could meet the requirements that were set out by the DPW director. They were supposed to check back tonight. I reached out to the DPW director earlier today and did not hear back. And seeing there is nobody here from National Grid, I'm gonna ask that we keep this public hearing open. And I'll go to the public on this. Is there any member of the public that would like to speak in favor of or against this petition? Second time, anybody that would like to speak in favor of or against this petition? Third and final time, anybody that would like to speak in favor of or against this petition? Member of the committee, do you have any questions?
No.
Councilor
Okay.
Shelf, was that for Councilor Frieda? Any other members of the council? Seeing none, we will keep this public hearing open and we can vote on a time during the meeting.
Very well.
Thank you, Mr.
very much.
President.
And we'll pick it up at 6:45 with your second public hearing.
Thank you.
You can start.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a continued public hearing of the Public Service Committee on Petition 2-25. National Grid requests permission to locate poles, wires, and fixtures, including the necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures along and across the following public way. Lancaster Street, National Grid to install one solely owned pole on Lancaster Street beginning at a point approximately 190 feet southeast of the center line of the intersection of Central Street and Lancaster Street. National Grid will be installing new pole 2-84 in Guy to replace Tree Guy since the tree is being removed. At our last public hearing, we heard testimony both from National Grid and from a butter of the where the Tree Guy is and the tree that's being removed, around some concerns about the tree being removed because the tree is still healthy. So because of that, we reached out to the DPW for some extra information on the tree, and we received the following letter back. Members of the council, in reference to petition 2-25 on the agenda for a public hearing dated 8/12/2024. There are a couple of reasons this tree is being removed, primarily due to its location directly in the, in parentheses, recently replaced sidewalk and created ADA accessibility issues. There is also a guy wire in the tree that supports the utility pole across the street. The city has been working with National Grid to identify and remove all guy wires from hazard trees and anchor them into the ground or erect a new pole, which will be required in this case. The DPW met with representatives from National Grid to discuss options, and unfortunately, there is no way to support the existing pole across the street without installing a new pole in the place of the tree. The difference is that with the pole, we will be able to meet ADA compliance. In addition, the city also has a tree survey completed a couple of years ago, and the report on this tree was as follows. Bullet number 1, tree by 17 Lancaster is a 33-inch diameter little leaf linden. Bullet number 2, pulling up sidewalk and causing ADA accessibility issues. Bullet number 3, it is in poor condition with co-dominant stems, crown dieback, hardscape damage, and included bark. Bullet number 4, has to be removed because it is a hazard tree causing accessibility issues. I have attached a picture of the tree as well for reference and would recommend that the council approve National Grid's request to remove the tree and replace it with a pole guy. Thank you, Jake Fleming, Leominster Department of Public Works. Seeing there is no one present from National Grid, I'll go to members of the committee first. I don't have any questions. Councilor Claire Frieda, do you have any questions or comment? Councilor Shalfo Zephyr?
You know, I'm just curious, why is Jake Fleming, who's the business manager, writing the letter? Do we have a forestry person at DPW?
At the time I received the letter, the director was out. That's who I originally reached out to, and the response came from Jake Fleming.
Okay, thank you.
Any members of the council have any questions?
Yes, I do.
Councilor Tossi?
Is it possible to save this tree? It seems like Mr. Shu was, last week said that he could save the tree and just redirect the wires. I'd like to try to save the tree.
I can't speak on the health of the tree as I'm not a tree expert, but
I saw
from
the
what
picture, it looked good.
I can say from driving by, I would deem that the tree seems to be in good health and the sidewalk has been replaced. But that's just my opinion, not an expert opinion by any means. Any other questions? Councilor Shalfo Zephyr?
Yeah, according to the letter, you know, the DPW doesn't make any claim that the tree is diseased. It just says it's in the way, so they can build a sidewalk around it. Is, you know, kind of my perspective. So the tree is fine.
Any other questions or comments from members of the council? Councilor Frieda?
Just going back to the letter, maybe we should check with Jake Fleming to see who said it was in poor condition. I mean, it does look healthy. Looks like the biggest issue is the ADA, you know, the ability to get a wheelchair past there. But could something else be done? If the tree's healthy, then I agree we should try to save it too and work around it somehow. But I'd like to know who said it's in poor condition.
I mean,
And this is a few years back, and that it's hazardous. I don't.
in the letter that we got, he does mention the tree survey that the city completed a couple of years ago. And the third bullet is where it does say it's in poor condition with co-dominant stems, crown dieback, hardscape damage. Again, not a tree expert.
Right,
But
that's why
the-
I'd like to know who's
Yeah,
saying
where that came from. I'm happy to get more information on that. Councilor Angelini?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's my understanding, and I'm not an arborist either, but it's my understanding that the folks that were commissioned to do the tree survey are indeed arborists. And so they did a citywide tree survey. And so that's the data, I believe, that the DPW is working off of. And they have a cataloged survey of all these trees. So I agree with you. It looks like a healthy tree to me. But, I mean, they did mention that it was buckling, that sidewalk, the concrete, and of course, the Americans with Disabilities Act accessibility issue is a big one. So,
Yeah.
Food for thought, Mr. Tossi.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr?
Okay. If you look at the picture on the second page, and I've been by there and I walked right by it and looked at it, it isn't in concrete, it's in tar. It looks like hardtop, which I guess they put there because maybe it's less, it moves more than concrete would, right? So I think that they understood that the tree roots would come up or whatever into the sidewalk, so they used a different kind of material. So I certainly want to make sure that the city does comply with the ADA, but I also think that there probably is a little bit of a workaround where that tree could be saved, based on the neighbors' feedback. And we could accommodate people with wheelchairs, because that's that's paramount. It's most important, so, thank you.
Councilor David Cormier?
Thank you very much. I certainly don't claim to be an arborist either, but I will tell you that, just a thought that comes to mind. I was driving up Union Street a couple of years ago near Franklin, and they were cutting down a couple of big trees there, and why are they cutting them down? They look great, and then after they were gone, you realize that they're all hollowed out. So that happens a lot with trees that I've seen them take down, and I'm wondering, why are they doing this? They're beautiful trees, and then you look and they're all hollowed out. Or if you talk to an arborist, they'll tell you that they are diseased. Even though they look healthy, they could have bugs in them. So I have to trust that their professionals looked at it, and whatever's wrong with it, it might not be visible to the naked eye, but after they cut it, you might realize it's all hollowed out, so I just, that's just something that I've observed over the years as well.
I saw Councilor Shalfo Zephyr first, and then Council President Bedanza.
Yep. In the DPW letter, the fourth bullet says that the tree has to be removed because it is a hazard tree causing accessibility issues. Doesn't really say anything that that it's falling down or rotted or anything like that. So it's, if DPW or whoever plans out sidewalks can come up with a little bit of workaround so that a wheelchair can get around that tree. It doesn't say that it has to come down because it's diseased. Thank you.
Councilor Bedanza?
Yeah, I'll just add, when I was city solicitor, we would get claims. Tree roots pop sidewalk panels and cause tripping hazards, and we would get sidewalk defect claims as a result of people falling or tripping over tree roots and hurting themselves. And I know when Mr. Racine has been here in the past, the city council desire currently is that, the city DPW's desire currently is to have these trees planted on private property, not on the street any longer for this particular reason. So that may be what's driving their, position on this.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? I'll go to the public. Is there anybody that would like to speak in favor of or against petition 2-25? For a second time, is there anybody that would like to speak in favor of or against 2-25? And for a third and final time, anybody that would like to speak in favor of petition 2-25? All right, seeing none, based on Councilor Frieda's request and the points raised by a couple of councilors, we'll keep the public hearing open, seeing that National Grid wasn't here. Hopefully they can join us at the next meeting. And if the clerk could reach out to see if there's any alternatives for like a loop around that, if that would help resolve some of the issues that the DPW has concerns around on the tree. And if we could get a letter back, that would be awesome. Councilor Frieda?
Yeah, when you asked the DPW about this, can you ask for the list? They said they had a report on other trees, I believe, when they did the tree survey. Let's find out how many they're saying are damaged trees.
If you can add that to the list, Madam Clerk. And just who did the tree survey was part of her initial question, if we could include that as well. Thank you.
Okay, you all set, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, thank you, Mr.
Okay,
President.
Councilor Angelini, you want to see if we can squeeze in the stop sign hearing?
I'll try, Mr. President.
Okay.
Thank you. Good evening again. This is a public hearing of the Legal Affairs Committee on petition 6-25. Mark C. Bedanza, Ward 4 City Councilor. Request to amend sections 13-77, stop signs of the Leominster Municipal Code by adding a stop sign for southeastbound traffic on View Street at the intersection of Grandview Avenue, and an additional stop sign for northwestbound traffic on View Street at the intersection of Grandview Ave. I have a couple of referrals back on this. The first one is from the DPW, RE petition 6-25. Dear Mary Bell, the Leominster Department of Public Works has reviewed the petition to install stop signs at the intersection of View Street and Grandview Avenue and offers the following comments. The DPW approves the petition as submitted. Please let us know if you have any questions. Sincerely, Raymond Racine, DPW Director. That one is dated August 19th, 2024. The second letter is from Sergeant Greg Robichaud, Traffic Supervisor, Leominster Police Department. And this one is dated August 15th, 2024. Good afternoon. Leominster Police Traffic has no opposition to this petition. Sergeant Greg Robichaud, Traffic Supervisor, Leominster Police Department. At this time, as is the tradition, I am going to turn it over to the petitioner for an explanation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This was driven by constituent concerns about people rolling through View Street onto Grandview Avenue without stopping. Some of you may not know that View Street has actually been extended, so it's on both sides of Grandview Ave now, which has made the problem a little bit worse. I went up there and took a look at it, and I've talked to some of the other residents, and there are people that will, it's always been sort of, Grandview sort of has always been treated as the street with the right of way. And for that reason, it seemed logical to establish that with stop signs, so it brings some safety to that intersection. That's pretty much it.
All right, thank you very much, Councilor Bedanza. Let me open it up to members of the Legal Affairs Committee. Councilor Tossi? No questions. Councilor Pauline Cormier?
No questions.
Anyone on the council? Any questions or comments? All right, seeing none, let me go to the public. Is there anyone in attendance this evening that would like to speak in favor of or in opposition to petition 6-25? For the second time, is there anyone in attendance this evening that would like to speak in favor of or in opposition to petition 6-25? And for the third and final time, is there anyone in attendance this evening that would like to speak in favor of or in opposition to petition 6-25? Seeing none, Mr. President, I'll declare this public hearing closed.
And it is 7 o'clock, so we can start the meeting. Join me in the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I'll take a roll call of the councilors in attendance, starting with Councilor David Cormier.
Present.
Councilor Pauline Cormier.
Present.
Councilor Thomas Ottinger.
Present.
Councilor Angelini.
Present.
Councilor Tossi.
Present.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr.
Present.
Councilor Robbins.
Present.
Councilor Frida.
Present.
And I'm present. All 9 members are present. Does the chairwoman of records have a report?
I do, Mr. President, thank you. The July 22nd, 2024 minutes have been submitted, and unless anyone has any further corrections, those are prepared to be placed on file. The minutes from July 29th, 2024 special meeting, I have reviewed those, found them to be in good order, and unless anyone has any corrections, I will ask that those be put on file as well. And the minutes from the August 12th, 2024 meeting, I have reviewed. I find them to be in good order, and if no one has any edits, I will ask that those be placed on file as well.
Any objections to any of those minutes? Seeing none, they may all be placed on file. Because we squeezed everything in but the public forum, so I'm going to require a recess so
I'll
we
make
can
a
have a
motion.
public forum.
I'll
For
second.
recess.
Second. All those in favor, please recognize usual manner. We are in recess. I'm going to conduct the public forum. The public forum is an opportunity for any member of the audience to speak on a matter specifically listed on the council agenda. Speakers will be asked to come to the microphone and state their formal name and address, along with identifying the specific item or items they wish to address. Each speaker is respectfully asked to keep their comments within a 2-minute time frame. The council will not be responding or answering any questions. However, at the discretion of the council president, clarification may be given. And the sign-up sheet is on its way. And we have Susan Philbrook is the first who signed up. Ms. Philbrook, are you in the audience? And also Tammy Hendricks Philbrook also signed up. Is she in the audience? Is there any member of the audience that did not sign the sign-up sheet that wishes to address the city council on an agenda item this evening? And for a second time, is there any member of the audience that wishes to address the city council on an agenda item? And a third and final time, is there any member of the public which wishes to address the city council on an agenda item? Seeing none, I'll declare the public forum closed. Moving on to the regular meeting of the city council, starting with communications from the mayor, we have none, and petitions first time on the agenda. 7:25, so you should be reading these and sending them to the appropriate place. This one.
Elizabeth Wood, on behalf of the planning board, requests to amend the zoning ordinance pertaining to upper story.
Yep. Okay, now you're on. Yep.
Elizabeth Wood, on behalf of the planning board, requests to amend zoning ordinance pertaining to upper story dwelling units. See attached, legal affairs committee.
All right. Councilor Angelini?
Thank you, Mr. President. First time on the calendar, regular course. I see that we have a public hearing date of September 23rd, 2024. We established that public hearing?
Very well. I think we already established it, so we don't need to do that. Is there any other referrals that you need to make?
Make a referral to the building commissioner, please.
Okay. So 7-25 has been established for a public hearing on September 23rd at 6:45 with a referral to the building inspector. All right, so now I can move on to 8:25.
Mr. Chairman, do we have to vote on the hearing date, don't we?
We already established it at the last meeting.
Oh, we did?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. We established it, we pushed it out a little bit because there's a companion petition that's going to catch up with it, that's going to be on the agenda later on, and they're going to be heard together. So we did establish it at the last meeting.
Why is this first time on the agenda then?
Then maybe you're right. Maybe this is the one that's catching up with the other one.
The other one.
All right, so
That's
I stand corrected.
Yeah,
All right, so the recommendation is to put this one on at the same time as the other one?
correct.
All right. So the chairman's recommendation is to establish a public hearing on 7-25 at 6:45 PM. All those in favor, please recognize usual manner. Anyone opposed, by a vote of 9-0, that public hearing is established. Moving on to 8-25.
The school committee respectfully requests with a vote of 8-0 that the Leominster City Council consider increasing their yearly compensation to align with the other school committees in Massachusetts. The committee currently receives a yearly stipend of $2,000 and will request that the amount be increased to $10,000 to take effect after the next election cycle and to follow the consumer index for future increases. The compensation will be paid out of the school department budget. Legal affairs.
8:25 is referred to the chairman of legal affairs.
This one is first time on the calendar, so regular course with a referral to the mayor. And we need to establish a public hearing.
I'm going to suggest September 9th at 6:40 PM. Councilor Cheryl Silver.
Through the chair to the Legal Affairs Chair, I would also recommend referrals to the superintendent, the new superintendent, as well as the business manager for the school department.
Certainly, without objection. Seeing none?
Okay, so the recommendation is to give 8:25 further time, establish a public hearing on September 9th at 6:40 PM with referrals to the mayor, superintendent, and the business manager. We got it all? Okay, all those in favor, please recognize the usual manner. Anyone opposed? By a vote of 9-0, the public hearing's been established. Moving on to matters before the city council, starting with the financial report.
Thank you, Mr. President. We began the fiscal year on July 1, 2024. The opioid stabilization fund began with $518,703.20. There was a deposit put in there from proceeds received from the state of $19,662.08, bringing the balance up to $538,365.28. The city's stabilization fund began with a balance of $22,845,823.27. We've added $50,180.97 in interest, and provided that tonight's appropriation of $4,550.45 is approved, we will end up having a balance of $22,891,453.79. The city's capital stabilization fund began with has a balance of $2,193,191.62, and that is the financial report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Moving on to matters before finance. Are you ready to report on C.3-8?
Yes, Mr. President. C-8, Dean J. Mazzarella Mayor requests an appropriation of $4,550.45 be made to the city clerk department advertising account, and the same to be transferred from the stabilization account. This is regarding prior year bills for fiscal year 24 budget, which was insufficient to cover the expense. So I had a conversation with the comptroller about this, and I initially had some concerns, and she did remind me that there was actually no deficit spending that had went on. No account has went into the negative. We do have an outstanding bill for services rendered for advertising. She did indicate to me that this is not customary, but it has happened in the past. Sometimes there are some, things that need to be resolved. Some bills that come in every now and again that didn't make it here. I think these bills were dated very late June. So once they were found out, there was really no time to ask for an appropriation from the city council. So at this time, we need to pay the bill. We incurred the expense, and basically I had asked her, in general how this works, and she says just basically an accounting thing that needs to happen, and so it would be my recommendation that we grant C-8, and I'll ask that you check with members of my committee.
Very well. Councilor Pauline Cormier
I agree.
and Councilor Angelini.
I agree.
You've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee to grant C-8. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Frida.
To the finance chair, through you, Mr. President. I'm still confused as to how it wasn't deficit spending, unless this is worded incorrectly, because it said the budget was insufficient to cover the expense, which means that the expense was incurred.
Right.
So it was spent with no money there. It was.
Well, I have to trust the comptroller's expertise. She told me that no account went into deficit. We have an outstanding bill, and we can either pay the bill or not pay the bill. And if we don't pay the bill, then I suppose they could sue the city for the services they rendered to us, or they can stop rendering services. There are advertising I asked her, I had the same concerns as you, that was my first thought. She made it very clear, we have not deficit spent. There is no account that went in the red. I asked her, if we're audited, is the DOR gonna, is this gonna put up a red flag of how we're doing business? She said, no, this has been done before. There have been times in the past when there were some loose ends to clean up for residual bills that came in for one fiscal year, but, by the time they made it here, it was very, very, very late June or early July, and it's an accounting thing that she, as the comptroller, will take care of. And I asked her if there's, anybody's gonna be concerned about this, and she said, no, this is a procedure that we can use to pay these bills.
Anything
I don't know
further?
that answered my question. If, were bills, were expenses, or was money, or were bills requested, was advertising requested when we didn't have the money there to pay for it? That's what this is saying.
That is correct, but
So it was deficit
But we-
spending then,
we
if you're
did-
saying that's correct.
we didn't pay the bill.
No, we didn't have the
pay the
money.
bill without the money in the account. So according to the comptroller, that is not deficit spending.
Well, maybe you can define deficit spending for me then as the finance chair.
That when the account was closed out at the end of the year, it was in the red, it was in the negative. That has not happened. That's what she has explained to me. So I have to trust her expertise that we have not deficit spent. There's a bill there, it is outstanding, and that she is going to do the accounting to get this taken care of once we approve the money.
If the bills are there to pay, then we ordered whatever it was without the money there. The bills are there, so we spent the money.
Well, not according to the comptroller. I had a conversation with her about this, and not according to her. That's not what they consider deficit spending.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr?
Yep, thank you very much. Through the chair to the finance chair. What I would like to see is the year-to-date budget report, the closeout for fiscal '24, because we used to get that. We always had, in the back of the current fiscal year, we always had the prior fiscal year, and we could see, what was being carried forward. We could see what looked like deficits in any of the account line items. So that's what I would like for the next meeting, is the fiscal '24 year-to-date budget report as it's closed out.
Okay. I can ask her for that, yep.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, so the recommendation, I'm sorry, Councilor Arndinger?
Yeah, just for clarification, if this bill came in, but it wasn't, came in like the 31st or 30th, and it just wasn't posted, it wouldn't be deficit spending, it'd just be an unpaid bill sitting there for the
Correct.
next year. So maybe the language is incorrect in the, communication.
Right.
That would be a simple change, is to change the language.
That's correct, yep.
So I think so, that would solve it.
Okay, I see two more hands. I saw Councilor Shalfo Zephyr first.
Through the chair, I guess to the councilor at large across from me, whenever a department has expenses that come in late at the end of the fiscal year, even if they don't get a chance to pay them before the fiscal year is over, the money is encumbered. So that
Okay.
the comptroller, somebody will come, whether it's the library, whether it's the city clerk's office, and they'll say, we've got $2,000 in outstanding expenses, they just came in, we can't pay them before the end of the fiscal year. Can you encumber that money? And that's set aside for the prior fiscal year, even though the year is closed. So I guess in this instance, it looks like that didn't happen. I don't know if it did, but that's a question for the comptroller. But that happens, I don't know if it's frequently, but it certainly happens when people can't pay the bills for a fiscal year before it ends. And I don't know what happened in this situation, though. It's not clear.
Councilor Frieda, I saw your hand.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that we not pay the bill, but I am suggesting if this wording is correct, then we deficit spent. And the council at large across to me, that doesn't change it. If you if you ordered an advertisement and you didn't have the money there to pay for it, that's deficit spending. You can't, the money should have been requested prior to that. You can't not order something when you don't have the money to pay for it. Especially not at the end of the year. So I just think we need to be careful with it. I did ask for a breakdown of what the advertisement was, and I really didn't get a lot of that either, so.
Okay, you all set, Counselor?
Yep.
All right, anybody else? All right, so the recommendation on the floor is to grant C-8. All in favor, please recognize usual manner. Opposed? By a vote of 9-0, the petition has been granted. Does the chairman have an order?
Yes, Mr. President, order that the sum of $4,550.45 be made to the city clerk department advertising account, the same to be transferred from the stabilization fund. Move for the adoption of the order.
You've heard the request to adopt the order. Is there anything further? Seeing none, all those in favor of adopting the order, please indicate by saying yea.
Yea.
Anybody opposed? The order is adopted by a vote of 9-0. Moving on to legal affairs. Is the chairman ready to report?
I am, Mr. President, thank you. This is 4824, Elizabeth Wood, Planning and Development Director, on behalf of the Planning Board, Leominster, Mass. Request to amend the zoning ordinance pertaining to uses not listed in the table of uses. I know this is a bit out of order, but there was no one here from the public, so I think no harm, no foul. I neglected to read a letter that was submitted from Planning and Development Office dated August 20th, 2024. Attention, Ms. Dorian, please relay the following to the City Council. On 8/20/24, the Planning Board voted 7-0 to take no action on City Council Petition 4824 pertaining to uses not listed in the table of uses. The reason being is that the flow chart on page 32 of the zoning ordinance already states that uses not listed are uses not permitted. Adding the new language would be redundant. There will be no public hearing on this matter with the Planning Board. If you have any questions or need more information, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Regards, Elizabeth Wood, AICP, Planning and Development Director, on behalf of the Planning Board. Mr. President, as you know, we held the second hearing on this, a continued public hearing at 6:30 this afternoon. And we had testimony from the building commissioner as well. It would be my opinion, based on, among other things, the opinion from legal counsel, that we adopt this language, and I would ask you to poll members of my committee.
Councilor Tossi
I agree.
and Councilor Pauline Cormier.
I agree.
Very well. You've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Legal Affairs Committee to grant 48-24. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Frida.
Yeah, through the chair, to the Ward 5 councilor. The building inspector alluded to the fact that there were 2 legal opinions, and you mentioned that we only had 1.
Correct.
Should we look at the second one before we do anything on this? See what this, if you get 2 opposing opinions by the same attorney, I'd be interested in reading those.
Curious as to why we didn't, do you have, yes, Peter?
So,
Should
We're
we
going to have
recess?
to, you're going to
Through
have
the
to
chair.
recess
I'm
if
sorry.
we want to go
I'm
to
sorry.
I'll
the
make a
building
motion
inspector.
for recess.
Second, all in favor of recess, please recognize usual manner.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Nile, you can approach and enlighten us.
okay, so I'm pretty sure I misspoke. The second opinion was not from the lawyers. It was from the planning board, who refused to take action on it. And I kind of screwed it up in my head. So we did have just the one from the lawyers that suggested we do it. And then we had the planning board saying not to do it. I screwed that up in my mind. I'm
All
sorry.
right, no worries. Thank you for clarifying that for us, Mr. Nile. All right, Councilor Frida, does that answer your question?
Yep.
All right, any other discussion on this? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of granting 48-24, please recognize usual manner. Anyone opposed? 48-24 is granted by a vote of 9-0. Moving on to 5-25.
5-25, Elizabeth Wood, on behalf of Planning Board, requests that the City Council amend zoning ordinance pertaining to the dimensional requirements for Residence B and Residence C districts. See attached.
This was the one that we established a hearing date for.
Yeah, because this one, originally 8/12/24, regular course. It would be my recommendation on this one, I think we're gonna need further time, and we would have to, we have a public hearing, September 23rd, 2024, at
established, yeah.
6:40. Yeah.
All right. All right, all those in favor of granting 5-25 further time, please recognize usual manner. By a vote of 9-0, 5-25 has been given regular course. I'm sorry, further time, and we have a public hearing already established. Moving on to 6-25.
6-25, Mark C. Bonanza, Ward 4 City Councilor, request to amend Section 13-77, stop signs of the city of the Leominster Municipal Code by adding a stop sign for southeast-bound traffic on View Street at the intersection of Grandview Ave, and an additional stop sign for northwestbound traffic on View Street at the intersection of Grandview Ave. Mr. President, once again, we conducted a public hearing early this evening. We had a positive referral back from the DPW and another positive referral from the Leominster Police Traffic Division. It would be my recommendation to grant 625, and I would ask you to poll members of my committee.
Sure. Councilor Tossi
I agree.
and Councilor Pauline Cormier.
I agree.
You've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Legal Affairs Committee to grant 6-25. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting 6-25, please recognize usual manner. Anyone opposed, 6-25 is granted by a vote of 9-0. Moving on to the Public Service Committee, and 2-25, is the chairman ready to report?
I am, Mr. President. 2-25, Massachusetts Electric Company, doing business as National Grid, requests permission to locate poles, wires, and fixtures, including the necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures along and across the following public way. Lancaster Street, National Grid to install one solely owned pole on Lancaster Street beginning at an approximate point 190 feet southeast of the center line of the intersection of Central Street and Lancaster Street. National Grid will be installing new pole 2-84 and guide to replace tree guy since the tree is being removed at Leominster, Mass. Location approximately as shown on plan attached. We continued the public hearing this evening. And there was some lively discussion, and we are requesting some more information from the DPW. Seeing such, we're going to have to give this further time with an extended public hearing date of
September 9th at 6:50 p.m.
September 9th
mean-
at 6.
Oh, yeah, September 9th, sorry.
It's okay. And Councilor Frida, you okay with that? Councilor Shalfo Zephyr? So yes, recommendation of the Public Service Committee is to give 2-25 further time and to continue the public hearing to September 9th at 6:50. All those in favor, please recognize usual manner. Anyone opposed, by a vote of 9-0, that may be done. And the city clerk has information requests to the DPW that she'll fulfill for the next meeting.
Thank you.
Moving on to 3-25.
3-25, Massachusetts Electric Company, doing business as National Grid, requests permission to locate poles, wires, and fixtures, including the necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures along and across the following public way. Pleasant Street, National Grid to install one solely owned pole on Pleasant Street beginning at a point approximately 66 feet south of the center line of the intersection of Pleasant Street and Pleasant Place. National Grid will be installing quadruplex to service 800A at 71 Pleasant Street, installing stub pole 8-84 to support the new quadruplex wire Leominster Mass. Again, we continued the public hearing earlier this evening, and at our last public hearing, we had asked that National Grid go back and meet with the DPW to make sure that they can meet the requirements that were laid out in the referral from the DPW director. There was nobody here from National Grid tonight to tell us whether they had met with the DPW or not, so we need to give this one further time as well and establish a hearing
September 9 at 6:51 p.m.
on September 9th at 6:51, and I'd ask that you check with the other members of the committee.
Councilor Frida?
I agree.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr?
I agree.
You've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Public Service Committee to grant 3-25 further time and to establish a continued public hearing on September 9th at 6:51 p.m. All members in favor, please recognize usual manner. Anyone opposed, by a vote of 9-0, that may be done. Moving on to Ways and Means, and C-7. Is the chairwoman ready to report?
I am. Thank you, Mr. President. C-7, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor. Request that Lindsay English be exempt from the provisions of the Mass General Laws, Chapter 268A, Section 20B, conflict of interest. Lindsay is currently employed by the City of Leominster Health Department and will be taking a position as a basketball coordinator for the winter basketball programs at the Leominster Recreation Department. Attached is a letter with this from the Mayor's Office. Dear members of the City Council, I respectfully request that Lindsay English be exempt from the provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 268A, conflict of interest. Lindsay is currently employed as she's actually a administrative assistant in the health department to work as basketball coordinator for our winter basketball programs at the Leominster Recreation Department. The mayor is writing to request approval of the city council to exempt Lindsay from a conflict of interest. The two jobs do not conflict with present job requirements. And attached with this is the notice of the disclosure of conflict of interest and all the proper paperwork. As everyone would remember, these come up every once in a while. And it's just somebody taking an extra position within the city to help out, in this case, the recreation department. So it would be my position to grant C-7, and I'd ask that you check with members of my committee.
Councilor Arndinger.
I agree.
Councilor David Cormier.
I also agree.
You've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Ways and Means Committee to grant C-7. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting C-7, please recognize usual manner. Anyone opposed? By a vote of 9-0, C-7 has been granted. Moving on to new business in the first reading of an ordinance formally C-3.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is formally C-3, first reading of an ordinance. In the year 2024, an ordinance amending Article 21 of the revised ordinances entitled Water and Sewer. Be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Leominster as follows. Chapter 21, Article 3, Section 21-22.3 of the revised ordinances entitled Sewer User Rate Schedule is hereby amended by deleting the provisions for metered rates within and outside the city and inserting in its place the following. And once again, before I get into this chart, we have a chart that we've seen several times. To remind everyone, this was to correct two typos that were in the original fee chart. I will recognize the two that were incorrect here, that are laid out in this ordinance.
Does anybody have any objection if the chairman only reads the corrections as opposed to the entire?
No.
Okay.
All right, wonderful. First one is located halfway down the page, out of city, in parentheses, as of July 1, 2024. The rate is $10.47 per 100 cubic feet. And on page 2 would be this is outside of city, additional sewerage volume over 1,000 gallons, the rate would be $11.50. And high-strength industrial user is any user who discharges processed waste at strengths higher than normal domestic sewerage, i.e. BOD at 250 mgs per liter, TSS equals 300 mgs per L. In no case shall the sewerage charge be less than $1 per 100 cubic feet discharged. A minimum of $75 per quarter per account shall be charged to those users who utilize sewer service only. Billing for such use shall be computed and mailed to users on the same form used for water rate billing, and shall be due and payable on the same date, and shall carry the same interest rate for late payments as specified in section 21-11.2 of the revised ordinances. Mr. President, it would be my recommendation to adopt the first reading of this ordinance, and I would ask you to check with members of my committee.
Very well. Councilor Tossi
I agree.
and Councilor Pauline Cormier.
I agree.
All right, you heard the unanimous recommendation to grant the first reading. Is there any further discussion? Otherwise, this will be by roll call vote, starting with Councilor David Cormier,
Yay.
Councilor Pauline Cormier,
Yay.
Councilor Arndinger, Councilor Angelini,
Yay.
Councilor Tossi,
Yay.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr,
Yay.
Councilor Robbins,
Yay.
and Councilor Frida.
Yay.
And I shall be recorded as yea by a vote of 9-0. The first reading of the ordinance has been adopted. Is there any old business? Seeing none, is there any community calendar or old business, Councilor Frida?
Yeah, it just, I wanted to bring up a petition I put in many months ago regarding the foreclosure law, everything that was around it, considered tax equity theft. In the governor's budget that was signed the end of July, that was included in there. I just wanted to correct a statement at the time. The Ward 5 council and I went back and forth a little bit, and he felt strongly suggesting to us that the Supreme Court said that the law was the law and our people were protected. They were not. I said that it was people in Minnesota that were protected because that's where that law was established. This is now protecting the people in Massachusetts with this law. It goes even further than some other states. Extends the time frame for that, before a community can begin foreclosure from 6 to 9 months, I believe. And the equity can be guaranteed. We could have had our treasurer hold some of that money. It was allowed by DOR. We did not, but now that's all accounted for. So I'm just glad that we don't have very many foreclosures for taxes. But, in the event that we do, and I know our present treasurer would never do that to any of our taxpayers, but we don't know who may be in those jobs in the future. So the law now would stand in Massachusetts, and it would cover Leominster as well. So people's equity would not be taken from them to pay a tax bill. So.
Okay, thank you, Counselor. Any other old business? Seeing none, any community calendar items? All right, so I just want to indicate that the city is putting together a number of events in connection with the 250th anniversary of Johnny Appleseed's birth, which is September 26th of this year. The first item is September 12th. The mayor's office and the visitor center will be selling a commemorative coin for $10 on that day. That's the first matter that gets kicked off. The Johnny Appleseed Fair is the 14th of September. The parade is the following day on the 15th, but there are a host of other activities, and there are calendars, physical calendars that are free that can be picked up here at City Hall, at the library, at the Visitor Center, or at the Historical Society. And I will be trying to coordinate with Amanda Curtis to make sure all of those items are on the city's website as well. Anybody else have anything for the community calendar? Councilor Frida?
It's not a community calendar, but I think it's something that we should probably ask the mayor to just let us know. I almost hate to bring it up, but it is mentioned in the KP Law issues on police investigation. The word is out in the community that our chief is off the job presently. I don't want to get into any details, I don't know them, but I think there's a lot of discussion in the community about it, and I think whatever the mayor can put out for a small comment, I think should be just put out for just to let the people know that something is happening and getting to the bottom of it, and it'll be resolved one way or another.
Well, that's going to be the mayor's prerogative. He's the chief executive.
I agree.
But you put it out there, so if he wants to respond, he will.
It's been out there, so it
Well, I understand,
did me.
but it's not on our agenda, so we got to be careful how far we go with that. All right, anything else? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Councilor Shalfo Zephyr, second. Councilor Hardinger, all in favor? We adjourn. Thank you very much.
The Leominster City Council meeting is funded in part by the Carolus Insurance Agency at www.thecarolusinsuranceagency.com and by Avidia Bank at www.avidiabank.com.